Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business and People podcast. This is the show where we take business and then we take the business away and talk to people and find out their stories. Today, we're blessed to have the creative genius and the brains that is Kristy-lea Tritz on the show with us. Now, Kristy-lea has ridden the roller coaster of employment, self-employment, employment, self-employment. She is an incredible artist. If you're watching this on the video, you can see some of her artwork behind Kristy-lea right now. She's got an incredible talent there as well. But what she specializes in is helping entrepreneurs and solopreneurs to plan their life so that their business doesn't actually swallow them. Kristy-lea Tritz, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be with you guys today.
It's great to have you. Now, Kristy-lea, your journey has been quite interesting. We were talking just before we clicked on the record button. You've gone from the employment to self-employment to back to employment and now self-employed again. And just before we hit record, you said, I can never work a job again. How did that old roller coaster all come together for you?
Well, it started, I think, when I was really young. I always was very highly imaginative, and I was writing stories when I was a young child. And I kind of always knew that there was this part of me that was just meant for something. I didn't know what it was going to be at the time. And as a young child, I would even go into like friends' rooms and organize them and help them plan things and all these strange things that you don't think like little kids would do. And so I think it really started way back then, but I just didn't know that that's what it was called.
Yeah, sure.
And when I was a teenager, I started writing and I started getting my writing published. So kind of I became an entrepreneur at that point in time. And then from there, I became an early childhood educator, which just enabled me to learn the side of education even more, which is where my real passion was educating people and helping them really figure out, problems and solving those problems. So I was able to do that with kids who had special needs and figure out how do they really learn and what do they really need, which then allowed me to transfer all of that knowledge I had gained to the online world, into the coaching industry and online business. So I became a business coach and I started sort of helping people idea generate, really is where it started, and helping them build out their websites and their content and creating different things for them, helping them to see things that they didn't necessarily see were there as opportunities.
Right.
And then I just, from there kind of grew that to a certain point. And then my husband was unemployed. So I was like, oh my gosh, I need to pick this up 20,000 times fold. And so it was a very difficult process to do that on my own. And I decided to go and coach with a different company and then do that. And when all of that ended up falling through, I started to begin to pick up the pieces again from there. Wow. And then sort of come back to life, shall we call it. And I'm just starting to return back to writing, and I'll have 2 books coming out this year. And then, of course, now I'm also returning back to helping people really create the business that they can live, not the one that takes over their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we clicked record again, we were saying that so many entrepreneurs start their business with the idea, I guess, of freedom. If we say to so many people, what made you go out on your own? They would say freedom. And then, 3 or maybe 2 years later, they're buried under 80 hours or 90 hours a week of work and barely able to get the cash flow coming in. And not one of them had that as part of their plan. So it's a very nice area that you sit in terms of helping people get through that. So what I love is that when your husband lost his job, you had to then kind of say, okay, we need to stabilize the ship somewhat. And then it was, once all that kind of didn't work out, you were able to then regenerate yourself. And I love what Tony Robbins says, where he says, your resourcefulness is your best resource. And I find that is so true with so many entrepreneurs. When you're working with people and helping them plan their business, what are some of the kind of ways that you're able to move them past some of the blockages that they have right now?
So I think the very first thing that I do is I understand where they are in their business, what makes it unique, who they are, where they want to be, how much time do they actually want to spend plugging into their business. And I like to say I take away the 24/7 hustle, because everyone's talking about you need a hustle and you just need to do more and you just need to get, really what you actually need to do is you need to create a plan that's strategic, that's planned out from the months. So I take them, okay, here's all your stuff. And then we say, over a period of these many months, usually we do 3 months, this is what you need to accomplish. Then we break that down into weekly tidbits that you can do, and then daily. So now you know, I have a schedule. This is what I need to accomplish in this schedule. And you're able to complete way more in less time. I can complete 12 courses in 12 weeks.
Wow, cool.
Because I have a system that I've developed. And then essentially with anything I do and teach people to create is I follow that system. And as long as you follow a system and a process, you can do far more than if you're just kind of like, oh, I'm going to do this and I need to do that. I need to do this and I need to do that. And then your brain's like, oh, I don't know what to do, you know? And so planning is the absolute key foundation to creating a solid business platform.
Wow, cool. I can hear entrepreneurs listening right now, screaming at their headphones or car stereo, wherever they're listening, going, that's fine, Kristy-lea, but I've got so much going on. I don't have, my plans always get wrecked by whatever. And, our days get interrupted 100 million times and, so many different things calling for our attention. How do you help an entrepreneur quieten down that noise so that they can focus on that plan?
So that's why I do the extraction first. And we help them see what is it that you actually need to accomplish and what is it you feel you need to accomplish. Because those are two separate different things. And a lot of times when you begin to sit with somebody else like me and say, here's all the things I have on my plate and all the things I want to accomplish, what I do is I take those and my brain just goes and it sorts it all and it puts it into like this planning mode. And then I say, okay, so this is what you need to get done first. This is what you need to get done second, third, fourth. And then they'll go, yeah, that's totally it. How did you figure that out so fast? And then I'll say, okay, so what are the skills and techniques you need, or what are the things you need to plan, and what do you need to do to accomplish those things? And then we start to set a plan in motion.
Nice.
And then what I do is I check in with them and I say, okay, does this feel overwhelming for you to be able to accomplish one podcast a week, as an example, right? And they might say, oh, one podcast a week sounds so much more doable than, oh my gosh, I need to create 52 podcasts. And then they're just like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And so just really helping them focus and narrow down on the things they actually need to do rather than things they feel that they need to do. And once you create a system, then it's just like, I'm going to use an analogy. When you go to have a banana for breakfast, do you think about how to peel the banana and exactly what steps you need to take and what you need to do and try and remember the process of doing that? No.
It comes naturally.
It becomes automatic. And that's the same thing as when you have somebody help you put together a solid plan. Eventually, what ends up happening is that becomes automatic. You don't think about it. It becomes a process that you just follow and that you're able to implement. And so the more you practice it, the more easier it becomes. The first 3 weeks are going to be the hardest.
And that's where you have to kind of, I guess, form that as a habit. If I wanted to use that as a cliche, like you want to be able to move away from the confusion and the, oh my God, everything's out of control feeling that so many of us skate on every day to a very regimented system. And as you said, it would be hard for the first few weeks, but after that, it becomes normal. Do you leave time inside of that system, inside of that schedule for play? Do you leave time inside of that system for emergencies or, flex time or even just creative thinking time? Is that an essential part of the plan?
Yes. And that's why it's unique to every single person, because everybody and everybody's businesses look different. And everybody has different kinds of routines throughout their day that help them get through their day. So there are some people who do better in the evening, some people who do better at completing work in the afternoon, and some who do better who complete it in the morning, and some like me who do it in the middle of the night. But it just depends on all of these factors. And that's why really building a relationship with the person and figuring out, okay, where are you now? Where do you want to go? And if you could feel less overwhelmed, what does that look like to you?
Yeah, right.
How much time would you want to spend in your day doing activities that you actually love compared to doing your work activities? And what does that look like? And then of course, if they have clients, one-on-one clients, how many do you actually want to take?
Yeah, sure.
And then beginning to work with what they have. And from there, you can also build other components that could generate additional income. Let's say, for example, they only want to take 4 one-on-one clients from now on. And they're currently taking 6 and it's too much. So then it's, how do we make up that income? So there's several different ways that we could do that. What does that look like for you is going to be completely different than it is for somebody else. So that's where creating a customized plan becomes really important. It's not about a cookie cutter system that works for everybody.
Because there is
and so some people can do like 3 hours in the morning and then they just want the rest of their afternoon off, and then they'll do 3 hours in the evening. So it looks different for every single person.
So tell me a story, Kristy-lea. Like, take me a client who perhaps was overwhelmed, confused, and stuck where they were. And obviously, you don't need to use business names or that kind of stuff. But tell me their situation and how we designed that and what we ended up with at the end. Yeah,
for sure. So essentially what I did is I had a consultation with them and we sat down and they said, what is the project that you want to work on? So some people, it's project based. So they might want to work on a book, or they might want to work on a course, or developing their business further than what it is. And so I would sit with them and then they tell me what it is. And I ask them bunches of questions and I write furiously and we record the session. So they always have that to go back to after. And then from there, I begin to formulate a plan already on the paper as they're talking to me. And it's through the talking that I help them get the clarity.
Nice.
So then after that happens, I say to them, whatever I wrote down. So I usually will say, okay, so these were the 4 key things you told me about that you want to implement in your business. This is how you're feeling currently. These are the things that you said you need to put in place in order to not feel that way. And then what I do is in the background, I formulate a plan. And then from there, they like utilize that plan.
Nice.
And then
are you thinking of a specific client while you're retelling this? What was their again, without using customer names or anything, but what was their project, or what was their business niche? Were they in real estate, or were they what was their space, and what were they trying to achieve?
Yeah, so she's a life coach.
Okay.
And she was offline coaching, not online, and she wanted to bring her courses and her content to an online platform, but didn't know how.
Got it.
Knew absolutely nothing about how in the world to do this. And she felt really, really overwhelmed because she's like, I don't know the tech. I don't know like the first part of, bringing something I do offline to an online audience. And so I walked her through like, okay, well, you're going to obviously need to create the content, right? And then we came up with a plan for her for in 30 days, how she would create that content, exactly what she would do every single day.
Nice.
And then all she had to do was go and do those things.
Yeah.
And then I also asked her, how much time do you have every day? So if you have an hour, then we'll work with an hour. So that's technically what she had. Cool. So we worked with an hour, we created that plan, and over 30 days, she was able to get her first course completed.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so then
it's a common
she just kind of grew from there.
That's awesome, Kristy-lea. That's a common story, actually. I catch up with entrepreneurs and business owners and that kind of thing. And it's a common story where what they have offline, and they're really trying to bring that online. But the problem is that everyone in the online space, and I include myself in that camp, everyone in the online space are really, really good at marketing online. So in terms of when you Google, for example, how to get my course online, you have 200,000 results, and every one of them looks amazing, and one has a shiny button and the other one, it's so much to get into that online space that it's very difficult to pick a path and to to stay onto that path until conclusion. So do you advocate for things like outsourcing quite often when you've got clients that you're working with?
Once you start to get to a certain point, yes, you can outsource. And I actually do some of that work for them.
Yep.
So I might build their site or their course pages or upload their course content for them.
Sure.
So it just depends on that particular client. But I definitely recommend outsourcing things because you cannot, as you go along, you cannot do it all by yourself.
No, I've found that definitely.
At all.
It's a complete, and in fact, one of the biggest things for me from an outsourcing point of view is when you look at it as an entrepreneur, quite often the immediate comment that comes back is, I can't afford it. And what's always been amazing for me is that when you do decide to offload a whole bunch of the tasks that aren't necessary for you to do personally, what you find is that your time frees up and you can afford it so much easier because you've got more time to use the creative ability that you have built within you. So, Kristy-lea, as you're, let's see if we can help some people right now on the call. And obviously, I'm going to put your website in the show notes, because what you do in terms of your business, bringing people into a place where they have a plan, they have a system. I like those words. Being able to take from where they are, systemize the next steps, and follow those steps. I love that. So I want everybody to go over to KristyleaTritz.com and touch base with you and sign up. I know that there's some free resources they can get there. But let's see if we can help somebody on, who might be listening right now. So this is an entrepreneur. They're driving in their car. They're heading to work. They know that their to-do list is completely overwhelming this morning. They have no idea how they're going to get through this before their kid's birthday party on the weekend, or maybe they're on the treadmill or something like that. And they're feeling completely unable to get through this swamp of work that seems to be in front of them. Would you be able to give them a starting point so that they can kind of settle with that feeling?
Yeah, so I use this all the time, because I love planning and organizing and I love technology and all that stuff doesn't mean that I don't ever become overwhelmed.
Sure.
And so the first thing that I would tell them to do is, one, go sit in quiet place and take a deep breath. And remember that you're here to help other people with whatever it is that you're going to be providing. And when you're in this space that you're in right now, you're not going to be able to do that to the best of your capability. It's like the mom who's like doing billions of things and isn't able to care for her children or herself because she's too busy doing everything. It's the same thing for an entrepreneur. So the very first thing is to take a moment, even that's 5 minutes, and just reset. And then the next thing is grab a piece of paper and a pen, a real old-fashioned one. The kind that you can actually feel, and the one you have to write with, those kind is what I'm talking about.
Still exist, okay.
Not your laptop, not your desktop, a real pen and paper. And then what you do is begin to just sort of, I like to close my eyes at this point and teach my clients to close their eyes at that point. And then just simply be in the space and think about each part of your business. And which ones, when you think about them, bring you the most overwhelm. Those go on one side in one category. The ones that bring you the most joy and happiness, those go on another category. And then essentially what you do is whatever task it is that you feel like you have to complete or that you need to do, you begin to write that out. And you don't need to think about it. You just start writing. And all these things are going to start popping out of your head. And the important part of this is because the more stuff you hold on to inside of your brain, the more that it's just going to go around and around and around and around in a loop, trying to figure it out. And when you begin to write it down, it's saying, okay, I can let that go. I can let that go. I can let that go. And then you go back and you review that. And when you review that, you find those pieces that you need to do today to begin moving forward today. That might look like one piece, one small action that you can take that day. And just breaking them down into the smallest pieces that you can break them down into. Because a lot of people look at, let's take, for example, maybe they need to build a website, okay? So they're building their website or building their course. And they look at it as this whole big piece. I need to build my website. Well, there's a ton of pieces in building a website or in building a course. So what I teach my clients to do is don't look at that. Don't look at that big thing. Write down all the things that are coming to mind in that whole entire timeline of stuff you feel like you need to do. And then go back to the very beginning. What is it you need to start with?
I love it.
And that is the only thing you focus on in that moment.
I love it. There's so many key messages there, Kristy-lea. And looking back at the wisdom of time, the message is not new. And that's great, because that shows that it's proven. And so the first part of the message is get quiet and alone. Mm-hmm. And we all struggle with that unless we make a point of setting that as a reality. So no matter what's happening, no matter how busy things seem, no matter how much is going on, you need to get quiet and alone to perform this exercise. And again, the wisdom of the ages is telling us how frequently that piece of advice is coming to the front. The second part mm-hmm. there, Tim Ferriss calls it getting it out of your head. So taking that piece of paper and that pen and just doing a brain dump. Like, you don't necessarily have to do anything with the piece of paper that you're creating. It's taking all of the jigsaw puzzle pieces that are messed up in your mind right now and putting them all face down so that you can start to build the picture in the way that it should be, rather than having it all scattered. So as I said, Tim Ferriss calls it getting out of your own head. And I personally found that so useful, sitting down and just start writing. What's bothering me? What do I need to be working on? What am I really happy about? Anything that's coming to your mind until you find that you finished writing, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 or 15, whatever, until you've finished writing and you can just say, okay, phew, now my brain can think again. Mm-hmm. And so that was second piece of advice. And then the third part, which I love from what you were saying there, again, echoed back through wisdom. There's a great book called The One Thing, which I absolutely love and highly endorse. And taking all of that stuff that you've just got out of your head and saying, okay, and the exact phrase from the book is, if I could do just one thing that would make everything else easier or irrelevant, what would that one thing be? And then one of our previous guests, Kerry Baird, said, don't focus on finishing the task. As you said, if you look at the website and you say, this is a mammoth task, or the course that you want to put up, or the recruitment drive, whatever it is, this is a mammoth task. And if you look at that in a burned out, stressed out state, you can't even begin, because you just don't even know where to start. But don't focus on finishing the task. Focus on starting it. What is the one thing that you can do right now that starts that ball rolling? And that's cool advice. And that's I don't mean to sound this condescending. That's a terrible. I'm trying to find a way not to sound condescending. But what I love is that someone in your position has that wisdom to be able to take that into a solopreneur or entrepreneur's business and help them through that mess. I love that. That's a huge kudos to you.
Well, I don't know if you've ever heard of what an HSP is, which is a highly sensitive person. Okay. But if you've ever heard of that, that is the trait that I have. Cool. And so what ends up happening is when I'm working with people, I don't see necessarily or hear necessarily what you're saying to me verbally, but I hear it in a much more larger capacity. And I see a different picture than what you might be painting just by what you're saying. And that helps me to then take those things and create that plan for you, to create those, those goals for you, to help you figure that stuff out. Nice. And sometimes I think I'm like actually trying to find my book here, because I'm going to show you what I do. And each year I do one of these. So you can see this one says 2020 planning. Yep. And it's just a simple do-a-tang, but I have labels for each part of my business in here. Nice. And just labels for like whatever, maybe like gratitude journal, my marking for whatever I'm getting, my goals, those kinds of things. But have one of those handy every single year and get a new one every year. It doesn't have to be a fancy thing. You can make it fancy if you want to. But that's where you do all your brain dumping in, because you never know when you're going to need one of those ideas you put down in that book. And you're going to be like, wait a minute, I remember I wrote something about this down. And then you can go flipping through that book. And you know what ends up happening? You can create your social media out of that. You can create your videos out of that. You can create written content out of that, courses. Like, it becomes endless of what you can do just by simply creating that silent space and starting to write down all that stuff that's coming through your head.
I like it. That's a great tip as well. I used to do that, and I haven't done for a long time, but I think that is going to give me a kick to get back into that habit, to have that exact framework. And one of the things that I used to find doing that was that everything got put into the same place. I love your idea of the labels there. So we're separating goals from business, from whatever else it is that you want to, have in there. You might have one for gratitude, one for frustrations, one for ideas, whatever that is there. Something that Jim Rohn actually said when he talks about creating a journal or using a journal effectively is he said, leave the first 2 pages blank and use that as an index, so that you can, when you have something that comes up and it's, oh, this might be a great idea for a social media post, go back to the index and write, okay, social media is on page 16, 22, 58, and 75. So you can actually flick back through and say, okay, hey, where were my courses ideas? Or what was my idea about finance? Or, what were the thoughts that I had about goal setting or whatever. And you can see, okay, well, that's on page 8 and page 98. And I can just go straight back to the journal and find those points. I love the idea of almost breaking the book itself down into sections, so that if all I want to do is write about my fitness goals right now, I can turn to that fitness section and just, jot it down. I think that's really cool. So, what's your standard approach with a business? You mentioned the first thing you're going to do is ask them a bunch of questions. You're going to find out where they're at and what they're trying to achieve. Is there ever a client that you talk to and say, I'm probably not the person right now, or is there a space for everybody?
Yeah, I won't take on a client that I know is not a match.
Yep.
And the reason for that is because then it's only going to cause that particular client more frustration and overwhelm. And it's going to cause me frustration and overwhelm, because I really want people to have a good experience. I want them to be able to learn things the easy way, not the hard way. And that's from my teaching background. I needed to figure out ways in which to teach concepts and skills, like learning your ABCs, in a different format, in an easy way that other people could maybe not know that person needed to learn in. Mm-hmm. So that might have looked like them drawing it in a sandbox, as in that example, right? And so sometimes I'm not going to be the perfect match for that particular person. However, I'm also a connector. So I might know the person. I would say, I think you should go to this person because I think they would be a better match for you, considering where you're at in your business. And I have a huge network of people. So I'm able to then refer them to the other people that I know would be that match for them.
Very cool.
So it's not like I leave them high and dry and just say, sayonara, buddy, I'm not the right match. Right. I'm one of those people who'll be like, okay, I'm not the right match, but I do know somebody who might work for you.
Very cool. Do you have a belief in networking in terms of, so let me ask that a different way. Very recently, I was introduced to a networking group that meet once a week, and they talk, they just talk, literally just talking business. What I've found being an entrepreneur, and especially in a technological era, is that a lot of work is done here. This is the office. I've got my team overseas, but we're always catching up on Zoom or Skype or whatever. And it's very much, my whole world exists in a monitor screen. And I really felt that networking facility was just amazing to be able to talk to other people in business. Do you have a recommendation for people to not only have a plan of how to clear out the overwhelm and the confusion and work towards a goal, but do you encourage or endorse kind of that support group or networking facility with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I do. And I do that in a couple of ways. So that's one of the things that I talk about a lot. You need a community. Yeah. If you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, you need a community. And so in one of the things that I do, which is called Pattern of Growth, it is a community. And I go live every week with them. They can ask me questions. If they run into tech troubles, I can help them work through them. That's cool. So essentially what we do is we meet together. And we build that community. We have a Facebook group, and so you can ask questions in there. And the other community that I recommend is a community that's specific for your growth in your business. So that's more like a mastermind type group where you meet with people who are wanting to excel in some sort of format, and it's not necessarily a learning platform. Yeah, sure. Right? So I think having both types of community is really, really important, because you're going to need the learning platform in order to be able to say, hey, I'm running into this trouble, or have you ever gone into this issue, or whatever it might be. and get an answer for that. Instead of like trying to figure it on your own and Googling it for 50,000 hours and losing so much time and then throwing out your computer out the window because you're like, oh, I can't get this. And so I think that kind of community is really important. And then the other community where it's more of a supportive environment, it's like a little nest where you can grow and then you get your wings and you can sort of fly away and then you're all flying together sort of idea.
Nice.
So I think those two kinds of communities and support systems are absolute musts for entrepreneurs, because otherwise you'll eventually start to feel the overwhelm way more because you have no one to talk to.
Yeah.
And you'll also start to feel the isolation and loneliness that can come into play when you are an entrepreneur, which brings up a whole nother issue of then there's this emotional piece that comes into it. And you might find yourself not being able to complete the work you want to complete because that loneliness and emotional and isolation piece starts to take over.
Yeah, definitely. I really absolutely 100% agree with you. And I hadn't thought about that in terms of the two different types of groups or networks that you can be involved in. I think that makes a lot of sense. One for learning and growth, where we are skill set growth, minded, hey, challenge, overcome. And the other one, just literally people to be around and to be associated with who are like-minded and share the same values, and that you can just all be in it together. I think that's awesome. So Kristy-lea, what's next for you? What's the next 12 months, 3 years got in store for Kristy-lea Tritz?
Wow. I always have like so many things on the go. So of course I have those 2 books that are going to be coming out. I'm working on a new signature program that will be coming out also this year, hopefully in the next few months. I'm working on that in the background right now. And then also I really, really want to begin to travel the world and visit orphanages and bring art supplies to them.
Nice.
So that's something that's like huge in my heart. I want to bring art and learning to those people who wouldn't necessarily get to have access to those things. And hopefully in the next 3 years, I would also like to bring some entrepreneurial type skills to people who have come out of human trafficking. So teaching them like to see the gifts and the value that they have and the things that they can bring to an online space or an offline space and really utilize those skills. Because I know for me, when I was in high school, I was the only girl in computer class. And I look back and I think, if that computer teacher would have put me down and everyone in the class would have been like, look at you, you're the geeky girl, where would I be now?
Yeah, sure.
I guarantee you, I would not be doing tech and teaching other people how to really like utilize tech for their business the easy way and breaking it down for them in ways they can actually learn. And I wouldn't be in the place where I am helping people to really begin to plan out their business, plan out their courses, plan stuff so that they actually have more time to do the stuff they love doing rather than spending time in ClickFunnels trying to figure out how to build a funnel, as an example.
Yeah, definitely. And that's an awesome mission, Kristy-lea. And looking back from the personal experience of, if your teacher had made you feel that way, then life would have been different. And taking that forward to say, people out there that have been made to feel less than worthy, being able to help change that path, I think is very, very, very cool. So Kristy-lea-Tritz.com, we're going to make sure that link is there. People can get in touch. I noticed on your site that there's some, like I said, some free resources that they can catch up with you on, and start to join the groups that you've got and the workshops that you're doing, and help to put that plan into place and get through the overwhelm, help to really thrive in terms of their own business and their own futures. So, wow, congrats, well done. I love the position that you're at and what you're delivering to people and entrepreneurs. I think that's fantastic. So I just wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
We'd love to hear more about the book as well when that launches. Come back on and tell us about it.
I will definitely, for sure.
That would be cool. All right, guys. Kristy-lea-Tritz.com. Kristy-lea is an incredible human who's taking entrepreneurs and helping them plan, helping them stabilize, helping them grow, and of course, providing a ton of resources and community along with that. You can head along to Kristy-lea-Tritz.com, get in touch with Kristy-lea. You've heard that she's a very passionate person when it comes to helping others in that space. So do make sure you jump along and get in touch with Kristy-lea. And again, thank you so much for joining us on the Business and People podcast.